I completely understand if you are someone that is starting to lose hope in your chances of being able to break into the actuarial field. Maybe you are starting to feel frustrated or losing momentum because breaking into the career has been more difficult than you thought it would be. If so, you are not alone. This is Maneesha. She's a member of the Actuary Accelerator community, and in today's video, you're going to get to be a fly on the wall while I do a coaching call with Maneesha to help her figure out how she can improve her chances of getting an actuarial job in North America where she currently lives. No matter whether you are someone that is currently struggling to find an actuarial job or if you are just starting your actuarial journey, there is going to be tons of insight on how you can become the best possible candidate you can be for actuarial jobs and internships for that matter. So stay tuned to get tons of advice and insight into gaining the right qualifications, into studying for actuarial exams, and also how to create a resume that helps you stand out to actuarial employers, and also some networking as well. Let's get started. How about we talk a little bit more about the qualifications that you have now and talk about where we might be able to improve those, and then during the second half of our call we could look at your resume.
Yeah, sounds
Do you
good.
have that available that you could just pull it up on the screen later?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay, that would be great. Okay, so before we get into the coaching call, let me share some details about Maneesha that she shared with me before the call, just so you're on the same page as I am. So, Maneesha graduated back in 2020, and she had an actuarial internship while she was in school, and also got a full-time job as an actuarial analyst in Sri Lanka. So, in that position, she was eventually promoted to actuarial associate, and then 3 months later, she moved to Canada where she is currently living. And now we're trying to get her a job in Canada in an actuarial position. So she has about 2 years of actuarial experience, but does not have any exams passed. There are really 5 main things that I'm looking for in terms of the qualifications. So that is education, communication skills, related experience, technical skills, and exams. So for you, we don't have to talk about related experience because you've already had an actuarial internship and you've been working as an actuarial analyst. So I think you're covered there. Tell me a little bit about your education, even though I think this is going to be fine as well.
Yeah, so I graduated from mathematical finance honors degree, and I have done a postgraduate diploma in finance here in Canada. So
Okay.
that's a 2 years program. So that's my education.
Okay, that's great. And then you haven't passed any exams. We already know that. So I do think that that's going to be an area that is likely going to be holding you back from being able to get an interview, just because most employers are going to be looking for at least one exam passed, just to prove that you are able to pass the exams. So tell me a little bit about that. Have you already started studying for an exam, or
Yeah.
what's been the holdback there?
Yeah, to be honest, I was trying to get exemptions at the beginning, and even now I was just fluctuating between whether I have to do a FOA or SOA or IFOA. So that was also holding me back. But mainly I was trying to get the exemptions, but that didn't work. So after that, I was just preparing for exams, but that kind of just I couldn't prioritize that. So, but now I'm prioritizing that full time, and I'm sitting for the next upcoming FM exam session.
Okay, great. So that would be in February then.
That's correct.
All right, perfect. So it sounds like you're on track there, and you've decided to move forward with the SOA exams then,
That's
I
correct. Yeah.
guess. Yeah, okay, that would be great for working in Canada because anyone working in the US or Canada is most likely going to take the SOA exams. When it comes to studying for actuarial exams, you do need to take a different approach to studying than you would have used for your college exams. In this clip, I explain what I recommend. So when you are studying, what I would want you to be aiming for is for the first little bit, which you've probably already passed, is just going through your study materials, making sure you understand those fairly well, and then moving into tons and tons of practice problems so that you can really get a good sense of how the material that you've learned applies to real questions that might be asked on the exam. And once you're getting about 70% of those questions right,
then you could move on to fully timed exams. And sometimes this is something that people tend to neglect, is going to those timed exams, but those are also really important. And you want to be aiming to achieve about 85% on those exams. You're not going to need to get that high of a score on the actual exam, but as I'm sure you know, it's going to be more difficult to perform at your best when you're in the real exam situation.
Yeah.
Another thing I recommend doing is also, when you're doing those timed exams, is try doing them in a whole bunch of different locations, not just in your office or your typical place that you study, but if you are able to practice those exams in a whole bunch of different spots, it gives you that exposure to just being able to do exams no matter what your environment is.
Yeah, thank you. That helps.
Next, we start talking about her technical skills so we can see if those are in check.
So I have been working with VBA, Python, R, Excel
Okay.
modeling. So pretty much during my actuarial career, I pretty much worked in every single programming language. I won't say that I'm an expert, but still I can manage, and I have done
Yeah.
macros and everything.
Okay, great. So you're in awesome condition there as well. And then communication skills was another thing. Based on talking with you, I can tell that you have very good communication skills.
Thank you.
The description that you wrote to me is also very well written. The summary of what your qualifications are is well written. So I'm not too concerned about that area either. Do you have any experience doing presentations?
Yeah, so even
Yeah,
during my
okay.
career as well as at college, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So all of those things that we talked about are things that I want you to make sure are highlighted on your resume, because they're all going to be very important for actuarial employers.
So, one thing I forgot to mention here is that if you are a member of the Actuary Accelerator community, then you get access to our monthly communication workshops. And these are great opportunities to practice and enhance your communication skills through various different exercises. If you participate in those, it's a really good way for you to add communication skills to your resume and also talking about them during interviews. Communication skills tend to be something that's a little bit difficult to demonstrate, but if you've been able to participate in these sessions, it gives you a direct way to talk about those skills and show how you're continuing to progress in your communication skills.
Do you mind looking at my resume, or do you mind giving me some feedback on my resume? That is also one concern, because I'm just wondering, is that something wrong with my resume that I'm not getting any interviews or something like that?
You may have heard me say before that your resume can make or break your career. You can have great qualifications, but if your resume doesn't properly demonstrate those qualifications, or if there are formatting and communication errors, then a recruiter is likely going to turn your resume away without a second thought. So let's have a look at Maneesha's resume.
Okay, so it looks like Maneesha has her resume set out very similar to how I would recommend for members of the AAC, so that's great. Career profile, I always recommend putting at the top, and that's basically a quick summary of what makes you a great candidate for an actuarial career. And that gives employers a really fast way to find out what makes you amazing, so they don't have to search through your whole resume. They can see that right at the top there. So in your profile, you have, well, I'm just going to read it. Everyone else can go ahead and read that too. So one thing that I'm noticing in your profile that was a little bit tricky to understand was in your second sentence, it says hands-on programming skills and knowledge in modeling in MG Alpha. I personally haven't heard of that one, but that's okay. Um, Microsoft Excel. What gets a little bit confusing is it says including VBA, Python, SQL, and R. So um, those programming languages aren't really included in Excel. So
I was
do you see
trying to
how
say,
that's part?
yeah, I think this is not well written. So this part, I wanted to say Microsoft Excel, including VBA.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right.
But
Um,
maybe I have to change it.
yeah, so how about we go, so you have hands-on programming skills. How about in that section there, we put maybe in brackets, including VBA, Python, SQL, and R. and knowledge in modeling in MG Alpha. And then you could even just put a period after that, since you're not probably really modeling in Excel. So how about you take out that Microsoft Excel and put hands-on experience with Microsoft Excel, and like right at the top or above that, you're going to put hands-on experience with Excel. And how about we put multiple programming languages? Yep. And then right after that bracket, after the R, instead of putting we're just going to change that to a period. So knowledge in modeling in MG Alpha. Okay, and you'll want to change that to a capital K there. Okay, so I think this is making more sense now. Hands-on experience with Microsoft Excel and multiple programming languages, including such and such. Knowledge in modeling in MG Alpha. And how about we move core competencies down to a second line? So you'll leave a blank space there. Okay, great. In your situation, since you do have so much experience already, I'm actually going to recommend that you move your education down to the bottom of your resume. Not because it's not important, but I think that your relevant experience as an actuarial intern and actuarial analyst is going to be better than your education. Like, it's more important. So that's why we're going to put that there. I want to see what you have under your skills section, because you might not really need this section. Ideally, you would include all these skills in your work history area and other parts of your resume. So you might be able to just remove this skills section altogether, but let's have a quick look there. Okay, so those are all great skills. I want to make sure that we include those in your other sections, but for now, let's put them right at the bottom of your resume so they're not visible when we're looking at it, because we will go back later and just make sure that all of those have been included somewhere.
Just like the recommendation that I gave to Maneesha, if you are someone that has already graduated and you have at least 1 year of experience that's related to the actuarial career, then I'm going to recommend you do the same thing, because your related experience is actually more valuable than your education.
Okay, and then you have your career highlights, which is a section I do recommend you put, especially if you have some really good relevant experience like you do. If there's anything you can do to add some quantitative numbers to those, quantitative results, or just any way that you can include some numbers in those, then that's going to be even better. Typically, actuaries like seeing numbers. So if you can include that and show your ability to just quantify things right on your resume, that would be helpful as well. So that's something you can look at a little further later.
One thing that I forgot to mention here is that adding numbers and quantifications is a great way to show your analytical and detail-oriented thinking. These are both really good qualities that you want to show employers, especially when you're going for an actuarial job. You can do this not only in your career highlights section if you have that, but you can also do this in your experience section and your technical skills section if there are real-world projects that you've worked on.
Right above your career highlights, I'd like to see a section there of your actuarial exams, because even though you don't have one passed yet, you still are studying for one, and that's really important for employers to know, because it proves to them that you are in the process of trying to pass that exam. So if we just I would put actuarial exams as the title and make it the same format as your other ones. Yeah, I'll leave that section for you to add onto later, just so we make the most out of our call. But you want to put the exam that you're taking. You'll probably want to put exam FM/2, because if you do apply to companies that are SOA focused, then you'll have exam FM there. If they are CAS focused, then you'll have the exam 2 there, and that will just make sure that you're covering both bases. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I have done that.
Okay, great. And you'll also want to put the date that you're sitting. So, or not the date, but the month. So you can just put sitting February 2024 there. Yeah, so you'll want to fix that section up a little bit, but for now, we'll just leave it as is. And actually, right up above in your career profile, I think that would also be a good thing for you to include in there as well, just that you're planning to sit for that exam, because that's another thing that makes you a great candidate for actuarial positions.
Okay, now we're going to move down to the experience section of Maneesha's resume.
Okay, so let's move to your relevant experience section. It looks like, oh, so you are currently in what we would probably call a stepping stone position?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That was going to be some advice that I had for you as well, is just that even though you don't have your actuarial position now, if you can be actively working and proving that you are still in the workforce, you're able to work and you're continuing to just um, up your skills, up level your skills, that's also great. So let's see what you're working on there. So I'm just going to read through that.
Just in case you've never heard me talk about a stepping stone position, basically this is a position that I recommend you get that's going to help you gain related experience for an actuarial career. It can be really difficult to go from having no experience at all right into an actuarial job. So if you can gain experience in a position that's relatively similar to an actuarial role, it's going to help you gain a whole bunch of skills that are going to be great once you get into an actuarial role and actually just to even find that actuarial position. So I have lots of videos about stepping stone positions on this channel, but they might be things like a data analyst, maybe a bookkeeper, things like that where you're using a lot of data, you're using a lot of numbers, maybe you're getting exposure to different investment topics, income statements, balance sheets, all those sorts of things. It's all amazing experience and it's going to help you get an actuarial job.
One thing that I would recommend for you in this part is see how you could find different things in your stepping stone position there that is related to the actuarial career and show how it's related. So you've already worked as an actuary, so you know what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you can find things that would be very applicable in your current work that is most relevant to an actuarial career, then those are going to be the things you really want to highlight here. So it's, for example, it's great that you're composing and submitting grant applications and associated documentation, but since that's not something that you're really going to be doing in an actuarial role, it's kind of, in a way, it's a bit of wasted space on your resume because it's not further proving your skills for an actuarial role. I definitely think that documentation is something that you're going to be doing a lot in actuarial positions. So maybe you want to focus more on that, or maybe there's some other things you can think of in your role that are more directly related to the actuarial career. But does that make sense how that particular bullet point there isn't necessarily helping to make your application better?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So this is actually a fairly common mistake I see on actuarial resumes, and it's very easy to do. I completely understand why it happens. And that mistake is that you tend to put on your resume language that depicts the old type of position that you were working in rather than the new type of position, the actuarial role that you want to get. I once worked with someone that was a rocket engineer that wanted to get into the actuarial career. And this rocket engineer had incredible experience for an actuarial position. But the big problem he was having was that all of his experience section of his resume was geared towards getting another rocket engineer position. It was really hard to see how that experience that he had was relevant to the actuarial career. So because of that, he really wasn't getting much interest from employers. Once he changed all that around, he was able to get into an underwriting position, which is another type of stepping stone position, and then he went into an actuarial role. I actually think he could have skipped the underwriting position and went right into an actuarial role, but that's what happened anyway.
So we can actually move down a little bit to the Milliman. Have you ever tried to get into Milliman in Canada?
I tried, but it was kind of a senior position and that didn't work.
Oh, okay. Because s- since it is such a well-known company, it's all over the world, that might be a good way for you to potentially get into the organization again. So perhaps you could start working on some networking. Is that something that you've been doing at all?
Not really, because I don't know many people from the Toronto office. But I need to expand my network on that. Yeah.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with Milliman, this is a consulting firm that hires tons of entry-level actuarial roles. They do encourage their team members to continue to progress through the actuarial exams, and because of that they have a great study program for their students where they get time to study for exams that is paid, they get study materials, and those are common things that you'll see in many large actuarial employers. One thing that's fairly unique about Milliman is that they are not closed off to career changers. There are a lot of companies out there that just want to hire those fresh new grads, but Milliman is actually open to the idea of career changers coming into entry-level positions. And I think that's a huge benefit for Milliman because a lot of the time those career changers have tons to offer that sometimes the fresh grads can't. After this call, I did actually pass Maneesha's resume, updated resume, to my contact at Milliman, so we'll see how that goes. They do typically require 2 exams passed for an entry-level position, so Maneesha might have to do some work in that area before being able to get into Milliman in Canada. Now, let's keep going.
I'm noticing on your dates here on the Milliman that there's not a space between December and 2021, so you want to add that space in there. I love all your bullet points. They're very well written. So as an actuarial associate, did you really do a lot of different stuff than you did as an actuarial analyst?
I had only 3 months, so it was basically the same stuff I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I typically find is that it's more of a title change. It's not too
Yeah.
much of a position change. So
Yeah.
you might actually just combine these 2 parts together and you can just call yourself actuarial associate. They're really not going to care too much of the name because that's what you ended as an actuarial associate. So yeah, you might consider just combining those 2 together and then you will have 7 bullet points, it looks like. So you could either leave all of those or you could say, okay, this one's very similar to this bullet point, so maybe I'll just remove this one. Or maybe there's ways to combine 2 bullet points together if they're very related to each other, just so that you could maybe get that down to about 5 bullet points. But either way, I think you're going to be fine.
I just want to point out the importance of formatting on your resume. This is a really common mistake I see when I review actuarial resumes. You want the job titles, the headline, and you want all the dates, all the headlines, all the job titles on your resume to have consistent formatting. This probably isn't something that's going to make your application any better, but it can be the reason that an employer questions whether you'd be a good fit for the job or not. It can kind of be a red flag that maybe you're not detail-oriented enough for an actuarial role. Of course, we all make mistakes, but when this is your first introduction to an actuarial employer, you want to double check, actually triple check, to make sure that there are no formatting inconsistencies on your resume. This is your billboard to the corporate world, showing them why they should want to hire you. So you definitely don't want to put it all down the drain just for some small, simple things like consistency in your formatting. You sometimes don't get a second chance.
Your experience is great. Like, I have no concerns with that. Yeah, the only thing I think you could be doing better in these work history sections here is just quantifying results and also talking about the benefits that it had for the employer. So for example, you created in like the second bullet point under actuarial analyst, you created data validation tools using Excel, demonstrating persistence or proficiency in data analysis to enhance data accuracy. So it's great that you created those tools, but is there some way that you could potentially, like talk about what were you able to eliminate X% of mistakes or errors, or just some way you can quantify it, or talk about how creating those validation tools was beneficial to the company, like what came of it. Okay, so if you can do that, that's going to make these bullet points even better. I would generally say you don't want any of your bullet points to be longer than 2 lines long, though.
Now we're through Maneesha's experience section. She has a lot of incredible experience, and I'm so glad that she took the time to properly demonstrate this on her resume. You can tell that she didn't just write up these bullet points in her whole resume in 10 or 20 minutes. She spent time on every single bullet point on her resume, and it makes a huge difference. Now, let's move on to the education section of Maneesha's resume.
All right, so let's go to your education section. On your diploma, you have December 2023. So either I would probably just remove December and just keep it as 2023 so it's consistent with the one below. We have a few more minutes here, so let's go through your skills and just make sure that those are all things that were highlighted in your experience section or other areas of your resume. One thing actually you particularly might want to do is when you're going through your experience section, I would also highly encourage you to make sure that you are stating which programming languages and technical programs that you have been using while you're doing these things, because that's going to prove that you have used those skills in the workplace rather than you just saying that you have experience with them. So that if you include them in your experience section, that's going to tell the employers where you actually use them and how. As part of the AAC, have you by chance done any of the technical projects in there?
Not yet.
Okay. You don't really need to because you have so much experience already, but I was just wondering because if you did, those would be something I would have you put on your resume as well. Okay, so insurance product. Actually, how about you go through those skills quickly and see if those are things that you have included in your experience section. So for bullet number one, is that?
No, I kind of try to just make them not included, not repetitive.
Yeah, since we're going to remove the skill section, then it won't be repetitive. So perhaps there's ways that you can include these things into your history section so that you don't need this separate skills section here. Yeah, and for you, I actually don't think it would be a bad idea to have a technical skills section. I know you've mentioned your skills in your career profile and you're going to be putting them throughout your work history as well. But since those technical skills are so important, I think you could have that technical skills section. It will be fairly short, just summarizing the different programming languages and technical skills that you have. And if there are certain projects that you worked on while you were in your internship or wherever it may be, where you specifically worked in one of those programming languages, like let's say it's VBA, for example, if there's a brief project that you could describe there that you maybe haven't mentioned previously, that would be another way just to show them that you have those technical skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I would put that technical skills section. Can I actually see above your work history? Yeah. So I think those technical skills could actually go below your relevant experience, but above your education. And you do want to keep your resume to 2 pages or less.
In this case, Maneesha doesn't really need to do Excel actuarial projects because she already has tons of real world experience doing these types of projects. But if you are someone that doesn't have this sort of experience and you're a member of the AAC, then make sure to check out the technical skills section of the AAC where there are tons of projects that you can do that are actuarial in nature and also help you to build your technical skills. Then head to the Resume Master course in the job search section of the AAC to learn how to add those technical projects to your resume.
All right. So after going through all of that and our coaching call today, do you have any questions that came up for you?
Yeah, so once I had an interview and they were like, since I have all life experience and I don't have any CAS experience, so I'm just wondering how I can tackle that situation.
Yeah. So even though you have life experience, the type of math and stuff that you're going to be doing on the CAS side is actually not too much different. Like it's going to be fairly easy for you to take all the concepts you know from the life side and apply it to the CAS side. So that's something that I would make sure that they are aware of. And even though they probably know that, I think you reaffirming to them that you are aware of that and that you are open to making that transition would be it would be beneficial. Even though you have so much experience in on the life side, it's really not going to hold you back on the casualty side. One thing that maybe you could do is spend some time looking at more of the terminology and stuff that is applicable more specifically to the CAS side if you get another interview on in that area, so that you at least can also tell them that you have been trying to understand the terminology there and stuff, so you're confident that you'll be able to easily make the transition. I think it's really about just instilling some confidence in them that you are going to make this transition and that you are prepared for the fact that it's going to be a little bit different, but it's nothing that you feel you won't be able to overcome.
Thank you, Brad.
Keep in mind here that the Casualty Actuarial Society, the CAS employer or the property insurance employer that Maneesha had an interview with, already knew that she didn't have CAS related experience. They would have known that from her resume. So when they asked her about this conundrum that she's only had experience in life insurance and not property insurance, really what they're looking for is affirmation and confirmation that you're really going to be able to do the job despite the fact that you don't have that exact experience already. This really applies to anyone that doesn't have actuarial experience. When you get an interview, they already know that you don't have actuarial experience. So if they bring that up as a hesitation or a concern, really what you need to do is just reiterate all the qualifications that you've been working so hard on to help you gain the qualifications you need for this position.
Any other questions?
Sometimes I feel like what are the benefits that we can get through the network? So I'm just wondering whether I'm lacking something there.
Yeah, so when you are networking with people, generally you'll want to try to build a connection with them. So it's not necessarily going to be people that are in the actuarial field, but there's a whole bunch of people that you know that you might be able to that might be able to help you get into an actuarial role. So as an example, when I was getting into my actuarial career, I was actually doing a lot of babysitting before that. And one of the parents that I babysat for happened to know an actuary that was working at a company in my city. So that parent was able to talk to the actuary that works in that company. And by going through that and just having them know that that person was someone that was connected to a friend of theirs, it helped me to be able to get into the company, even though I did apply directly through the website. You could also, when you are applying, maybe you could say that you were referred by or like referred by someone you know in the office, or maybe in your cover letter, you could include a little blurb about how such and such a person was able to explain to you a little bit more about what it's like working there or that sort of thing, assuming that they were able to, of course. But it would also be really good for you to potentially be able to meet up with that person. So, for example, maybe if I didn't do this, but it would have been really helpful for my career if I wasn't able to get into the company right away, would be maybe I could have asked for like a chat or something with that actuary that works there, just to get to know them on a more personal level. And then potentially they would be able to directly give my resume to someone on their team that could hire them or that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps a lot.
Here's something else I should have said to Maneesha when she asked this question. You absolutely should still apply to positions that are posted on a company's website, but you can also do your best to try to get your resume directly into the hands or in front of the eyes of someone that can actually hire you, an actuary or an actuarial recruiter. Sometimes the filters that recruiters use when they're sorting through all the resumes that they get, it can be a bit difficult to actually get through those. So if you can get your resume directly in front of the people that can hire you, as long as your resume is very well written and you have great qualifications, then it's really going to increase your chances of getting noticed. So there's really no harm in attaching your resume to an email or maybe a LinkedIn message where you're communicating with an actuary or a recruiter and just letting them know that you've attached it for their reference. They may look at it or they may not, but at least it's there if they want to.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
no
Rhea.
problem at all.
I
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
your service. I think that helps all the aspiring actuaries out there, and I'm really thankful.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to have you as a member of the AAC, and I hope this call was helpful for you.
Yeah,
I'm very, very confident that you will be able to get into an actuarial role, and I'm wishing you best of luck on FM too.
thank you, Rhea.
Coaching calls like this one are a big part of the Actuary Accelerator community. I offer them to all members on a regular basis to help them get through the struggles that they're currently going through and ultimately help give them the best possible chance of getting that actuarial job or an internship. If you'd like a coaching call like this one, then make sure to join the Actuary Accelerator community. I will leave a link to it right down below in the description. The AAC, or the Actuary Accelerator community, is designed to give you step step-by-step instructions on exactly what you need to do to gain the qualifications you need for your first entry-level job or internship, and the exact order you need to do that in so you get it done as quickly as possible. There are resources in the AAC for gaining technical skills, communication skills, building a great resume, networking, job searches, passing actuarial exams. There's even tutoring support. Plus, we have those communication workshops that I mentioned. In the AAC, you also get to connect through our WhatsApp group with tons of other future actuaries from all over the world. And there's nothing better to get motivation and support and insight than tons of others that are doing this at the exact same time as you. And actually, many of them will be ahead of you on their actuarial journey as well, so they'll be able to provide you with feedback and advice on what worked for them. So if this sounds like a community that you'd like to be involved in, check it out. Link is in the description down below, and I hope to see you in there.